Hi there. I'm very excited about my guest, but before I get to my guest, I have a little message from our sponsor.
Hi there. I have just started taking these prebiotics and probiotics. I absolutely adore these. And by the way, I kind of want to take even more, but you're only supposed to take 2 a day. So I hold it back to 2 a day, but I feel better. I love these things. If you go to llamaNaturals.com, use Sam, get 20% off your order. And they also have vitamins and minerals and stuff. And for kids also, they're very yummy. They're very good for you. Go for it.
Welcome to the Sam Sorbo Show. My guest today joins us from Homeschooling Today, which is a magazine, also podcast. It's basically support for parents. In fact, their mission is to come alongside parents and support them in setting aside comparisons, taking control of their children's education, choosing courage over fear, and letting God lead and homeschooling boldly, which is all everything that I can get behind. So the person who's joining me now is named Ashley Wiggers. Welcome to the program. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me, Sam.
So let's start. How long have you been doing this? You guys have successfully homeschooled a family full, right?
So we have 3 kids, 2, 4, and 7 that we are homeschooling and running the business together. But I actually was also homeschooled all the way through and graduated from high school homeschooling. And I just am so grateful for that experience. And this is crazy. My parents started Homeschooling Today magazine a little bit over 30 years ago. So we were really excited to be able to bring it back into the family. My husband and I purchased it in 2012, and we've been running it ever since. So, yes, our goal is to encourage homeschooling families, to keep them going, and really to remind them of what matters the most. Being homeschooled, I think I can really speak to some of the fears that parents have about how their kids are going to turn out and, what about this? And are we doing enough? And so we really try to encourage them that, you know what, this time together as a family is so precious. Please stop worrying so much about all the details.
Oh my gosh. So that is a really great point. And I was just interviewing someone else and we were talking about how the school prepares us to go get a job because money is the highest value in the school. And what you can learn and what you can impart on either side of the homeschool journey is how important relationship is, because nobody's tombstone ever read, "I wish I spent more time at the office." Like that's
Uh-huh.
just not what life is about. And it's, yeah, I'm okay. So I had to ask, you started this journey with Homeschooling Today in 2012, although it had belonged to your parents before. Um,
Mhm.
were you expecting 2020 to hit? Because this must have been a huge boon for your business.
It was a good year. And no, we were not expecting that. We just we're trying to be faithful to where we felt like God had called us. And we've always had a passion for families, for helping them have the courage to do this and to believe that they can do it. We meet
But
people all the time who are so concerned and feeling like, oh, is what I'm doing enough? And so that's our big mission. We want people to homeschool with boldness, to understand that, yes, you are, by homeschooling and meeting your child's needs at home, you're really doing more than enough. You are customizing your child's education based on what they need. And for my own story, I think I would be a totally different person if it were not for homeschooling and for being nurtured and loved and brought up in a safe and nurturing environment to learn
oh
in. Because
yeah.
I actually have a learning disability. I have a visual perceptual processing disorder, which is just a long way of saying that my eyes and my brain don't work together quite like everyone else's. So for me to be able to say that I felt like a successful learner and I still love learning today because of the way that I was taught, I think is pretty remarkable.
And your point being that if you had been put into a system of conformity, which is what our schools are, right? And you couldn't conform because you have limitations in certain areas, that would have maybe negatively impacted you in such a way as to limit the
Hmm.
growth that you've seen. I mean, it's so obvious. I think my snarky answer to parents who feel like they're not doing enough is, but you think the schools are? Who are
Right.
you comparing yourself to? Because the schools aren't doing enough. So literally your less than enough is so much more than their not even close to enough, right? It's sort of like
Right.
we set these high standards that we think are achieved by an institution, even though we have so much evidence that they are not being achieved by the institutions. So how do you account for that? Or do you?
Well, my mom actually was an educator. And so both my parents were, my dad was a professor in college and my mom taught in elementary and other areas, special education and things. And so she knew what was going on in the classroom. And when my brother turned 5 and he loved bugs and he loved being outside and baseball, but he hated to sit still. And he thought that if you gave him a pencil, he was being punished for something. Like, what have I done wrong to deserve this? And so she just knew that if she put him in a classroom setting, he was going to lose his love of learning. And he was going to be told to sit down and he was going to be, um, you know, told to be quiet. And she just didn't want that for him. She wanted him to still love to learn because he loved to be read to. He loved doing experiments. And when we realized that
How did
learning
she
is
know? Hold on, sorry. How did she know that he was not going to thrive in the classroom setting? Just because all boys, I mean, okay, so I'm playing a little bit devil's advocate, right? I don't believe that boys belong in classrooms before the age of, say, 9. I just think that it's developmentally inappropriate for them. They're boys. And I imagine that your brother, when he was given a pencil, wanted to like stab something
throw
or
it.
tap on something or break it, or, because that's what little boys like to do. They like to jump. And we were talking earlier today about some video footage that I have of my daughter, but in the background is her brother. And he's very young, but he's just jumping. And then he climbs back up and he jumps again. And that's all. And so that's what boys do. They're very physical. But
Mhm.
what was it that told your mom? Because she's an educator. She was trained to have children in a school. What was it? The impetus where she said, "Oh, this isn't appropriate for this little boy who belongs to me."
Yeah, I think she just knew, seeing his personality and seeing how much he needed to move. I think it's different. She had that job as a teacher, and she was a good teacher. I mean, she really did a great job in the classroom. She did her best, but she still knows that if these parents are being invested in their children's lives and they're the ones teaching them, they're going to do a better job than me. That's why she became a huge homeschooling advocate. And she had this really powerful message because she could tell parents, listen, I know what's going on in the classroom. So you don't have to be afraid. You can do this and you can do a great job of equipping and raising up your children.
Right. Well, and that's a beautiful thing, but nobody believed her. Not
Well, it
nobody. I don't
definitely,
mean nobody, but it is the hardest thing to buy into. I mean, it took me a decade, right, of doing it to finally concede. And in fact, one thing that I share with people is, the teachers don't get through the whole book.
right.
Because as homeschoolers, we're like, oh, I've got to, every dot, every I, cross every T, every jot and tittle. Because if I don't, I'm a failure. No, they don't get through the book either. And
I
once
know.
I
Isn't
figured,
that
yeah,
I'm so sorry. Isn't that amazing that we think if we don't finish the book, then somehow my child can't move on from this grade to that
oh,
grade? And
right,
that's ridiculous. But they don't realize textbook creators actually put 20% more in a textbook than what they expect you to be able to finish in a year. But they don't tell you that up front. But they don't want you coming back and ever saying, oh, there wasn't enough.
sure. And there's also, look, we moved when I was a young girl. We moved for the school. And one of the big reasons that we moved is that the school where I was, the high school, only did 12 chapters in the biology book, and there were 52. But we moved to a school that did 30 chapters of 52. And so
Hmm.
you would think that I would understand school doesn't accomplish the whole book, but that's not the approach that I took when I started homeschooling my kids.
It's hard,
So,
isn't it, to let go of those things that we see as tradition and to really embrace the idea that learning is so much more than finishing a book.
oh, right. I mean, there's that too, that it's actually not even tied to finishing the book. And in fact, sometimes you finish the book and you haven't learned anything. Like,
Mhm.
so they're completely independent of each other. But you're lucky you have a grandma who's gone through it a couple times and she can guide you. What does homeschooling today offer to parents that can help them uh, on this journey?
I feel like the biggest strength and the thing that we offer is articles that are relevant and honest and um, really sharing the ups and downs that parents are going through so that it's relatable and we're not saying, hey, you have to do everything like this. Our whole
Right.
message of homeschooling boldly means if you're doing it like someone else, that's the only time you know you're doing it wrong because every family should be unique and everyone should be following their own path. So that's what we try to do. We try to encourage, hey, this is how this family did it, but that's not, that doesn't mean you need to do it that way. You need to find your path. And you, as the parent, have been put in this position by God to be able to do this. So that's the other kind of flip side of our message is we're always reminding them that God is with you on this journey and he will equip you and keep you going. So my mom's life verse is 1 Thessalonians 5:24, which says, faithful is he who calls you and he will bring it to pass. And
Right.
so we're always reminding them, God is on your side. He is equipping you. He will give you ideas. He will lead you to the right place. And so we don't have to bear this burden on our shoulders.
Nice. I mean, he chose you. He chose
Mhm.
you. And this is one of the things that I tell parents is there's no place in the Bible where God says, go find a good school for your child. On the contrary, right? You've been
Mhm.
chosen to train your child. But because I think the school focuses so strongly on academics, and by the way, we all feel inferior academically because we didn't get straight A's in every single thing that there is out there to study. And so we know that we're losers because we didn't do everything, right? I think that just puts a terrible onus on the parents to feel inadequate. And the subtitle of my book was my journey from self-doubter to homeschool advocate. And even when I was advocating for it, I was still filled with doubt. Not that it was the right path, but that I would be successful. You just don't know. And the fact is, you should like run like a monthly column or something of high school, of school failures versus homeschool success stories, just to sort of pair them up, or maybe failures and failure. I don't know. But the idea being that just because you go to public school does not automatically make you a success. In fact, it really doesn't guarantee you anything these days. In the state of Oregon, you don't have to know how to read or do math to graduate high school. So what is that? Hi there. For years I've been talking about how our public schools, our government schools, have been captured by progressives and their progressive ideology, and that they are teaching things that directly contradict the values of millions of Americans, our traditional American values. And that's especially true if you're a Christian family. So, for those of you who are worried about the best educational path for your children, I am pleased to announce my new partnership with the Herzog Foundation. They are a trusted source on K through 12 Christian education, and they have a remarkable suite of resources for parents who are thinking about making the switch from government schools to either Christian schools or homeschool. From their online publication of The Lion to their network of podcasts like mine, the Herzog Foundation offers a wide range of advice and information for Christian parents to make the best educational decisions for their children. If you want to learn more about how your family, your faith, your community can flourish through a Christian education, you go to herzogfoundation.com. That's herzogfoundation.com. Thanks for listening.
If your measuring stick is getting straight A's, well, yeah, there's always going to be someone smarter out there. But if your measuring stick is, hey, God made you for a purpose, let's
There you
find
go.
out what that is together. And
Yes.
let's go on this journey of learning who you are and knowing that God created you for this time for a
Right.
reason.
In fact, the learning, the academic learning is really just sort of litmus tests in a sense of who this child is. What are his strengths? What are his weaknesses? And by the way, like, don't lean into the weaknesses, like lean away from them. There's no reason to make him feel inferior because he struggles in math or he struggles with whatever, right? You lean into the strengths, and what happens typically is they get so confident with the stuff that they're good at, they're willing to go back and tackle the stuff that they might have been more challenged by and accomplish it. And
It's
I
true.
mean, it's a completely different paradigm than what happens in the school.
Yes. And if you grow that confidence, so for me, having a learning disability and not being as good at certain things as other people, then that gave me this time where I needed to grow and learn who I was and who God made me to be, and that I don't have limits, even though I don't do things the same as others. And so I love to write. I would write all the time and I would write these stories, but I didn't realize my mom couldn't actually read them because all the letters would be connected in one long string. And that's when she really realized that there was a learning disability going on. But instead of her pulling out a red pen and telling me, oh, this is wrong and you have to have spaces in between your words and all that, she would go, this is great. Tell me about it. Because she saw the passion that I had. I was so excited that I had written a story and it was all in my head. I just couldn't quite get it on the paper yet. So
That's
homeschooling
amazing.
provides,
Okay.
it
No, you just
is.
have to park there for just a minute. That is so beautiful that she didn't just immediately go, no, you can't do it this way. This is the wrong way to do it. And instead said, wow, you've accomplished something, and maybe tell me about it so I can figure out what it is. I just think that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And that's not going to come from a teacher in a classroom who's managing 29 other students. It's not going to come
Right.
from that. So are you the second after your brother?
Hmm.
Okay. So she was already going through sort of schooling at home, your older brother, and you came along and you kind of broke the mold a little bit. And then she had to recalibrate, which is the beauty of home education, is the idea that the parent can recalibrate and there's no pressure. I mean, other than the pressure that the parent puts on him or herself, right?
Well, and we had this great law in the state of Florida that you, as a homeschooling parent, you need to make progress that is commensurate with your child's ability. So there's no specification about grade level and things like that. You need to make progress based on what your child is capable of. And hello, that's perfect. That's exactly what we need to be doing. We need to be throwing away society's, pressures that they would put on our kids, because so many of these kids that you see become stressed out and they become concerned that they're not smart. Well, where did they learn that from? I think
Right.
we have this incredible opportunity as homeschooling parents to give our kids an environment where anything is possible for them and just help them along, to grow them, to instill our values into them. It's
Yeah. No, I agree with you. And I was just up at Liberty University, and one of the first things that one of the individuals who teaches there came up to me and said, we need a better platform for these kids who are spending 30,000 plus hours on social media. They're coming to Liberty University, and that's a largely homeschooled population there, but they have anxiety disorders, they have suicide ideation, they're cutting, they're doing all kinds of things. And you don't think that's going to come necessarily from the homeschool community. But my point is, there's so many other factors out there that homeschooling might mitigate for some of them, but not all of them. But the point is, at least take your child out of the institution where a lot of that stuff comes, full force at them. And especially the anxiety, because these kids they're growing up so anxious. Well, why wouldn't you be anxious if you're going to an institution and learning that not only is God sort of just this fairy tale, right? But that your highest value is the amount of money you can make. And by the way, the economy's crashing. inflation's off the charts, and you can graduate from an Ivy League college and not be able to get a job, right?
Not stressful at all.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and
So,
I
so
think
tell me something. Your husband, was he homeschooled also, or is he just embarking on this journey with you?
he was homeschooled
Oh, he
too.
was.
And yes, and it's amazing because we can both look back at how it shaped us and made us who we are. So my husband is the type of person who can fix anything and he will take on anything and figure it out. And I really think that that comes from his childhood growing up, where his mom would let him try things and he would have an idea and they would get behind his idea and do it with him. So he wanted to sell, sodas to a construction crew that was down the neighborhood. And he's this little kid pulling a cooler with his mom, and she helped facilitate that for him. And the guys were really grateful because they needed cool drinks. And just those little moments as homeschooling parents that we can actually support our kids and affirm them and help them do the crazy ideas that they have. You never know what that's going to turn into.
Well, and by the way, that's not a crazy idea. That's entrepreneurship, and what a great lesson to teach your kid. And it's not a lesson that he's going to learn in school, but it's a very valuable lesson. I did the same thing with my kids. My kids went to, my husband came home from golf one day and he had little peepers, the little tiny frogs. And so
Uh-huh.
my kids went back to the golf course and they collected peepers and then they sold peepers to their friends.
Wow.
And that was their little business. It was a little pop-up shop that they created. The other thing that I tell parents is you should take your kids garage sailing and teach them how to negotiate,
That's good.
because
Yeah.
negotiation is a terribly intimidating thing, but it's not as intimidating for a young child. And by the way, people will just tell him yes because they don't feel comfortable negotiating. And so you give your kid basic skills that you put him in a situation that he's going to win, which is your job as the parent, is put your child in situations where he'll win, because
That's
then he
great.
will grow up with more confidence and hopefully, right? So anyway, it's just
Mhm.
fun. I had so much fun with my kid. Well, your kids are young, so you can totally go do that. It's so
Oh,
much
yeah.
fun.
We actually were just down at a creek today, flipping over rocks to see what we would find, and found some salamanders. They were very excited. And
Yep.
that's the beauty of it. Doing these things with your kids, waking up in the morning and not being rushed out the door. I think that
Right.
is one of the things I am the most grateful for, that we snuggle together and talk about the day and, what are we going to have for breakfast? And it's just this like slow waking up into the day that we get to enjoy together.
So I remember before I started homeschooling, I met an unschooler, and you cover unschooling in Homeschooling Today, the magazine, right?
We do.
Yeah. So to clarify for the audience, unschoolers basically believe that as long as the children aren't just turned loose on the internet to their own devices, that they will self-teach. They will drive themselves to learn the things that interest them. And I thought that was absolutely wacko. And of course, my first question was, what about math? Because I loved math, and math is my thing. And it seems ridiculous to think that a child is going to teach himself calculus for no, apparent reason, kind of thing. And yet, interestingly, her answer to me was, if he needs higher math to get into college, for instance, then he will teach it to himself at that time. And as time went on, I started to understand the sagacity of her view, is that basically you teach the point of education is to teach the child not just things and information, but to teach the child how to learn, how to teach himself, and also character development. So not just how to learn, but how to be in the world, how to be with people, how to forgive people, how to ask for forgiveness, how to be giving, how to, right? All of those things, all that character development is really the crux of education. Because if you're clever and you know all of this information, but you have no morality, you're going to be a very clever criminal. What's to
Mhm.
keep you from it? And you'll be terribly unhappy, by the way, because without that overlying virtue, uh, uh, the laws of virtue that you have to play within, right? Life is a game, and there are certain laws, and I'll call them the laws of virtue, and you have to play within the laws. And if you don't, things will go poorly for you, and you will be unhappy. And if you think that there aren't laws, then it's no game and it's no fun. It's like basketball, but you know the ball doesn't have to go through the net, but then it's no fun because the challenge is the ball has to go through the net. And if you take the net away, then what's the point? And this is where we are, I think, in our culture today, is these kids are going, what's the point? And they're getting nihilistic because there are no rules. That was a very long-winded non-question. I beg your pardon for that.
No, that was good. I
Um,
mean, teaching your kids how to learn and what learning looks like and how to enjoy learning, then you're giving them those tools that they can use in their life. And yes, instilling the values and living them out, because when they're living at home with you and they see you modeling what you believe, that's when it really becomes real for them. And it's not just something you tell them to do, but it's something you live out together as a family. That's when those convictions go deep.
right. So tell me about the podcast.
Yeah, so we have Homeschool Boldly podcast, and it comes out early in the morning on Monday morning, because what we want to do is very short. It's like 5 to 10 minutes. So our goal is to just give moms and dads a jolt of encouragement to start their week off and to have the right mindset for the week ahead.
That's just great. And do you answer questions at Homeschooling Today for parents? Do they write in with questions and things?
We do. One of our columnists is Dorinda Wilson, and she writes Dear Dorinda column, where we do have people who submit questions and she answers them. And it's just really packed with people who have a lot of experience and who are veterans, and also some who are still in the mix. And, you know, it is a good variety to offer advice and support.
It is a beautiful magazine, and you can find it at homeschoolingtoday.com. Anything else you'd like to share with the audience, Ashley?
Well, I would just like to share that the one thing that really made a difference for me growing up is that my mom made our homeschooling journey about our hearts. She didn't make it about all the things that we could accomplish and achieve. She made it about spending that time together. And through that process, we did accomplish and achieve a lot. But she actually passed away when I was 27. And so for me to be able to look back and honor her memory by doing things like this and keeping the magazine going, and to be able to tell parents, listen, you know, that time that we had together is so precious to me, because if she had sent me off to the classroom, we would not have been able to spend all the time we did. And I would be, I'm pretty sure, a different person today. So,
Wow, I got to tell you, that is absolutely beautiful. It is about the heart. We don't believe it because we went to school. You know it because you didn't go to school, but we don't believe it. People who have graduated, you know, public school or whatever, it's a hard thing to buy into. But what happens is when you make it about the heart, then your children become mission driven. And when you're mission driven, that's when you find your purpose and you can achieve true happiness. And that is the happiness that the founders put in our founding documents. The pursuit of happiness is actually the pursuit of basically of virtue and of self-actualization of who you were meant to be by your loving creator. And if that is the focus of your education of your children, then you're on the right track. Ashley Wiggers, you're a beautiful person. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
oh, thank you so much for having me.
And I'm your host, Sam Sorbo. Thank you so much for joining me for the Sam Sorbo Show. And all the links will be in the bio. Thanks.
1, 2, 3, 4.